Nice and clear. Lovely.
Okay, everyone, this meeting is being webcast live, and there'll be a recording of it on the made available on the CJC's website. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the public for the meeting of the South East Wales CJC. Before we begin, do we have any apologies for absence?
We do, thank you, Chair. 2 apologies. Councillor Hugh Thomas sends his apologies, and Councillor Sarah Memmy is substituting for him. And Councillor Anthony Hunt sends apologies. Again, he has a substitute, Councillor Joe Gowden.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. You want to give us your usual declaration of interest, Councillor Morgan?
No, I've been advised that there's no need to declare an interest at each and every meeting. I have in the past made a declaration over cryptocurrencies, but if anything comes up directly related, I will make that declaration.
Do you have any other declarations? So if I could move on to the minutes of the last meeting. I ask, please, are these a correct record of that meeting?
Move them, Chair.
Who was that?
Steve.
To second.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a show of hands, please. That brings us on to item 4, the chief officer appointments, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Just for those online this morning, just to note that the 2 officers that this report principally concerns have now left the room whilst I take you through this item, members. So the report that you have in front of you seeks to do 3 main things this morning. One is to complete the lineup of the South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee Senior Executive Team by asking the CJC to endorse the recommendation of the Appointments Subcommittee in respect of appointing Colin Mahaffey to the post of Strategic Director of Policy, Impact and Performance, and Jane Lagrua to the post of Strategic Director for Legal and Governance. It also seeks the CJC's approval to support building resilience in the team through making sure that we have deputy roles in respect of those 2 key statutory officers. That's a deputy Section 151 officer and a deputy monitoring officer. And again, we're recommending that Harjinder Singh and Thomas Maguire be appointed or designated in those roles respectively. And finally, it's to note the appointment that the CCR Energy Board has recently made of Christian Cadwallader to the post of Managing Director, which is a fixed term role for 2 years with the opportunity to extend by 1 year to cover the full scope of the demolition contract, which is currently in train. So the detail is set out in the report. You'll see, members, from paragraph 10 onwards, you've got a very detailed description of the process that has been deployed in respect of those chief officer appointments. Paragraph 13 onwards deals with the designation of the deputies that I spoke about to make sure that we've got resilience in respect to those key statutory roles. And then paragraph 16 onwards deals with the CCR Energy situation, which is, of course, a matter reserved to the CCR Energy Board. It's covered comprehensively by the CCR Energy governance policy, which has been agreed by the CJC. But given the level and given the seniority of that post, it's really important that the CJC notes that and supports CCR Energy in terms of making that appointment. So, Chair, if I could just refer you back to the recommendations of paragraph 2 in the report, which is set out there for you. First one is to appoint Colin Mahaffey to the post of Strategic Director, Policy, Impact and Partnerships. The same for Jane LaGrua in respect of the legal and governance post. To approve Harjinder Singh's appointment as Deputy 151, Tom Maguire as Deputy Monitoring Officer, and to note the decision of the CCR Energy Board in respect of filling the post of Managing Director. And I commend the report to you. Happy to take any questions.
Very much, Chloe. Do we have any questions?
I'm happy to move the report, Chair. Very happy to move the report.
Yeah, me too, Chair. Second that as well.
Thank you both. Since there is no disagreement, are we happy to take all the recommendations as one? Could I just have a show of hands, those in agreement? That's carried. And we can invite them back in. You're fine, you've still got to do it. Tough call then. Moving on to item 5, appointments to subcommittees and the board. And I will hand you over to Ellie again.
Yeah, so thank you again, Chair. So this report sets out the appointments made by Jane in her capacity as Monitoring Officer to the Corporate Joint Committees, subcommittees. And to be clear, that's the Audit and Governance Board lay members, the appointment of elected members to the Strategic Development Plan Subcommittee, which is sitting as a working group in its early days, and elected members to the Regional Transport Subcommittee, and then recommendations again made by the Appointments Subcommittee in respect of appointments to the new Regional Growth Board. So under paragraph 5, we set out the full committee composition for audit and governance. You can see the 5 lay member appointments that have been made. So that's Alan Davis, who's been elected as chair, Sherry Wolfe, who's been elected as vice chair, Andrew Blackmore, Sue Erickson, and Colin Prosser. And then you can see the other 10 local authority elected members of that committee. So you can see the full complement clearly set out there. Underneath as well, you'll see the full cohort that now comprises the Regional Transport Subcommittee, which is chaired by non-voting CJC member Councillor Andrew Morgan, and we have Councillor Liz Burnett as vice chair, again non-voting observing members. The same again on the Strategic Development Plan Subcommittee, which comprises 10 local authority voting members and is chaired by CJC non-voting member Councillor Liz Burnett, and with Councillor Andrew Morgan as vice chair as CJC's non-voting member. Paragraph 6 onwards then, you will note that we do have at the moment continuity chair of the Regional Growth Board, that's Kevin Gardner. He has taken up that role with Wendy Larner, the Vice Chancellor of Cardiff University, taking the role of Deputy Chair for the next year. Of course, then there's a nominee from each of the groups that I just mentioned, that's the Strategic Development Plan Subcommittee and the Regional Transport Plan Subcommittee as well. Paragraph 8 covers the point that we've added in, which is about CJC observer members, also for the board. That's Councillor Hunt, Councillor Hugh Thomas, and one of the Northern Valley's portfolio leads, so either Councillor Geraint Thomas or Councillor Stephen Thomas. Paragraph 10, then you'll see the process that we've gone through in respect of the independent appointments to the Regional Growth Board. That panel was chaired by myself, Frank Holmes and Kevin Gardner, and the recommendations set out to the Appointments Subcommittee in respect to Nick Bennett, who is a director at Savills, Louise Bright, who's Pro Vice Chancellor at USW, Professor Rob Huggins at Cardiff University, and Mark John of Tramshed. There's also a note about a co-optee, which is Sarah Williams Gardner, who's the current chair of the Western Gateway, and to note there that that will be in respect of any items concerning pan-regional partnerships. We are in discussions with one individual as well about the potential for a special advisory role in relation to entrepreneurship, and we're still waiting to hear back on that one. For members to note as well a bit more widely, it's been a really busy couple of weeks. We've been standing up these committees. So in the past 2 weeks, We've had, hosted by RCT, the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The Audit and Governance Committee has met publicly as well, their first public meeting. We've had briefings of the Regional Transport Subcommittee and their first public meeting. Same with the Strategic Development Plan group, which met yesterday, chaired by Councillor Burnett. The Appointments Subcommittee has also met, as a Standards Committee, which is hosted by Cardiff Council. And the Investment Board is winning the way. They've had 3 meetings to date already, so they've got off to a quick start, as well as the Chief Executives Group, which has also had 2 meetings. So there's a lot going on, and we anticipate the first meeting of the Regional Growth Board will now take place in September, which completes the full complement of our governance structure. And Chair, again, if I can take you to those recommendations, which are set out at paragraph 2 this time. The first is to note the appointments made by the monitoring officer in respect of the subcommittees that I've just taken you through. And secondly, to note the appointments made by the Appointments Subcommittee in respect of independent member appointments to the Regional Growth Board. Chair, commend the report to you and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Jenny. You've noted that it's a very busy time as this gets set up. There'll be lots of bedding in, no doubt. Part of that bedding in, I think, as you outline in the report, is the need to ensure that there's clear communication lines between all these committees, particularly those committees that are dealing with our statutory duties and regional protection around transport, as well as our strategic development plan. Of course, I saw a hand there, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Yeah, I did put my hand up. I was going to ask about the CJC Scrutiny Committee, but Kelly then went on to mention it in her update, so I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morgan. And Councillor Andrew Whitcomb was appointed again as chair of that committee. So yes, that's a continuity role as well, which I think is really beneficial for us.
Yeah, it's good to have continuity, yeah.
We're asked to note the contents of this report, so there are no more questions. Councillor Petruni.
Thanks, Mary Ann, and thanks, Kelly. A quick question, about the academic appointments. I noticed there are obviously Welsh focused, which, is absolutely right in many circumstances. Did we look to academic expertise outside of Wales?
We do. I mean, we've got a relationship with Hartree for a couple of bids that we've won. With UKRI, we work a lot with the Centre for Rural Policy Development at Warwick University. We're involved extensively across the UK Research and Innovation Network. And until recently, I sat on the board of Research England, which is the largest UKRI body with all UK universities. So we do a lot of work with Swansea and West Wales. We've got the Centre for Integrative Semiconductor Manufacturing relationship as well. So yes, our relationships, I think, are as diverse as possible, but quite clearly with some of the sectors and the clusters that we've got, that we've built up academic excellence around. So we've got the Centre of Excellence, Cybersecurity at Cardiff University. We've got the Translational Research Hub for Semiconductors. We're very fortunate that we've got all of the links that we need for our key sectors in the region. But that doesn't stop us forging wider links for nascent and future sectors as well.
Thanks, Chair, if I may. Thanks, Kelly. So with the subcommittees, we're not ruling out getting academic expertise outside, because the Welsh universities aren't the sole expertise in many of these areas. And I'm just making sure we go beyond the same pool set, always having the same ideas. We always want to keep it fresh. I just want to make sure that's on the radar.
Yeah, so Councillor Petruni, so if you take the example of the UK Competitiveness Index and the deep dives that we've done, that is Cardiff University, but it's in partnership with Nottingham University as well, where Professor Piers Thompson is based, who's one of our key academics. And I think beyond the UK as well, we've got knowledge transfer partnerships. We're doing a lot of work with the Basque region at the moment, and we have a relationship with universities there. So it's trying to get that international flavour, which I think is really important for our work ongoing as well. So appreciate that the Regional Growth Board looks policy heavy. It is about data and intelligence, but of course we've also got the Investment Board as well, which is much more business, industry and entrepreneurship focused as well. So I think across the board, there's probably the right complement, but we can't be complacent, as you say, and we've always got to look outwardly to extending those partnerships.
Kelly and I couldn't agree more, Councillor, really. But it is, as we progress, I think, as we start to move out and it starts to be very clear our political direction is going in terms of our strategies, that we will know where those alliances best suit where we go. We're being asked to note the recommendations for this report, so there won't be a vote, and I think we all agree with it. So can we move on to 66, which is Western Gateway? As you all know, this is those online. We have representation. I sit on the board, but Newport and Cardiff also have a seat on the board in the Red Mountain.
Yeah, it's me again, I'm sorry. So the Western Gateway report really sets out under paragraph 3 some of the key background information on the partnership. So it's a pan-regional partnership. It covers a large swathe of South Wales and an even larger swathe of Southwest England as well, with a population size of just under 5 million people. And CCR, as the chair has just said, has been engaged with the Western Gateway Partnership for many years now. And whilst Newport and Cardiff have their own singular relationships with Western Gateway, Cardiff Capital Region has a strong partnership with Western Gateway that is evolving, I think it's fair to say, at this time. So the Western Gateway tries to focus broadly on 3 main areas around driving investment, supporting innovation and connecting communities. And to date, we've had a good working relationship because the Western Gateway isn't a delivery model itself. It's about convening, it's about policy influencing and thought leadership. And where we've really found value in the Western Gateway Partnership is around those areas highlighted in paragraphs 3 onward in the report. So the work that we've been doing together around the hydrogen corridor through South Wales, subnational transport planning, the Independent Commission for the Severn Estuary, and we've also been working with Western Gateway to amplify the impact of what we call superclusters. So cyber is one example of that. I think for Cardiff Capital Region, I think that the place that we've landed with Western Gateway is their focus should be on those things that we as a region can't do alone. It's very clearly got to be about demonstrated value added. So the 3 areas that we've looked at really are around inward investment, subnational transport, and the wider net zero agenda around Green Deal and, of course, the Severn Estuary. So the issue for this report, however, is that currently we're in a process where we won't have a comprehensive spending review, or at least a spending review probably until late autumn of this year. Western Gateway only has funding up until the end of March 2025. So whereas usually we'd be paying our subscription, our fee of about £10,000, Western Gateway want to increase that by another £12,000 just to underwrite the risk that could present if they don't get continuity funding post a spending review. The second subject of this report is for the Western Gateway Convention, which is their second convention. It's taking place at the ICCW in October of this year. A very large convention. They've asked us to be sponsor partners to that, again, to the value of around £15,000. Important that we commit because that's likely to be a large showcase event with UK government and key stakeholders invited to that. As part of that, it's really important as well we consider committing to UK Reef next year with Western Gateway. All of the stands have already been sold. It's very, very difficult to get accommodation and a space at the convention centre in Leeds, so it makes sense for us to partner once again with the Western Gateway, but on a different basis. We won't just be a sponsor, we'll be an equal partner with the West of England, making sure that we've got the right exposure and the right space at that really important UK-based convention. And then the third request of this report really deals with the Severn Estuary Tidal Commission, and Western Gateway is seeking a contribution from Cardiff Capital Region of £75,000 to contribute to the cost of the Secretariat for the Western Gateway Tidal Commission. At this point, as your officers, that we're proposing that you note that request, but we don't act on it as yet until we know more about the future of pan-regional partnerships and until we know what the future funding position is going to be for Western Gateway. And I would like members to note a really important point on this as well, which is as 10 local authorities, you have an equal share in Cardiff Capital Region Energy Limited, which owns Aberthorpe Power Station. One of the first demonstrator tidal lagoons, which was drawn up many years ago, was for Aberthorpe. And that is something as Cardiff Capital Region may still wish to promote in the future, especially as attention turns to tidal demonstrators offering to other types of renewable energy. So to note, I think that one, Chair, could be a potential conflict, just something for us to watch. And again, is why we're proposing the position is noted at this time. So the report carries quite a lot of information, but I think just in terms of summing up, the recommendations are set out very clearly at paragraph 2. One is to note the progress being made in respect of our partnership with Western Gateway. The second recommendation then concerns a contribution to the Western Gateway Convention, the contribution to UK REEF, and of course underwriting the cost of the funding for the Western Gateway until such time their future is known through a spending review, which we anticipate to happen sometime in the autumn. So, Chair, I'll commend the report to you. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Do we have any questions? Online, do we have any questions? We have 2 recommendations to note, as Kelly pointed out. The second recommendation is asking for approval. Could I have a proposer?
Move the recommendations, Chair.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you. In which case, are we willing to go for a show of hands for this one? It's passed. Move on now to living wage. We need to to this
I've got my expertise. Thank you, Chair. So very pleased to present this report. I'll be very, very brief with this one because I think the report sets everything out very comprehensively. It's Cardiff Capital Region seeking to become a real living wage accredited employer. And we've long highlighted this as a priority. It's been reflected again recently in the CCR Strategic Equality Plan, which was back on the 18th of March. And it's really part of our outward facing commitment to promoting a much wider agenda of fair work. And whilst this is stage 1 of the process, this is clearly looking at Cardiff Capital Region itself become an accredited real living wage employer. Clearly, the wider objective is to use this as a bit of a charter to coalesce the different partners, businesses, entrepreneurs, industrial representatives we work with. So as a second stage, we can come back to you with proposals for CCR to be a real living wage region. So as I say, Chair, this is the first step on the way. It's an incredibly important and symbolic step. I think accreditation doesn't cost very much at all, but you can see in the report some really good examples out there. We particularly follow the pattern that Greater Manchester has set out. We think that's a really good example for us to follow. And of course, gives us that pathway, I think, in terms of becoming a real living wage region. Yeah, I will leave it there. The recommendations are clearly set out to agree to proceeding with the accreditation process to become a real living wage organisation, and then to support that wider medium-term ambition of scoping becoming a real living wage region as per our strategic equality plan. On that note, I commend the report to you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Councillor Spanswick. I can see. Councillor Spanswick?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the report. I fully support the contents and the way forward. And I do look forward to all partner authorities signing up to the real living wage in due course, because that's got to be the first step. All partner authorities, if they're not signed up, we're not going to get it to work on a regional basis. The real challenge is spreading out to contractors and third parties that are engaged through the Corporate Joint Committee. But that's a plan for the future, so I think it's encouraging the way forward. I fully support and so move.
Thanks very much. I would agree with you. I think many councils here are already living wage employers, and my council is on the way to being so. To me, this is just common sense. The region that will do so. We have 2 recommendations, colleagues. I'm going to take each one in turn. Do I have any proposal for envelopes?
Councillor, recommendation 1 asks members.
Yes, so I'll revert back to the. This is not here. Okay, recommendation 1, which is asking us to agree to proceeding with accreditation progress for CCR to become a real living wage organisation. We'll have a proposal.
Yeah, propose.
Second.
Accept that, Chair.
Thank you. Did you get that? Can I have a show of hands, please? I think that's passed. Recommendation 2, that we support CCR's approved ambition, the scope and the possibility of becoming a real living wage region as per our strategic equality plan. Do I have a proposal, please?
Move, Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. That brings us on to events and sponsorship.
Again, yes, thank you, Chair. So I'll take this one again very briefly if I can. So the report sets out some short-term ambitions which take us through to May 2025 in relation to events and sponsorship. We are working at the moment on a more medium to long-term approach, having a proper strategy in place for events and sponsorship. And of course, that will align with a medium-term financial plan, which will be brought forward shortly. So in the main, if I can get straight to it, Chair, the purpose of the report really sets out the timeframe we're on in relation to committing to MIPIM 2025. Again, a commitment is always needed around this time, and we will follow up a more comprehensive and detailed report. But it's very important that if we want to secure the location with other UK core cities and city regions, Newcastle, Glasgow, West of England, Belfast, and many others like Liverpool and Manchester, we do need to go ahead and confirm that location. The idea, as ever, for MIPIM is that whilst it does cost a significant amount, that investment is significant. Of course, we get contributions from other public sector partners, from Welsh Government, and of course from the private sector, so that the approach is cost neutral, or as cost neutral as we can possibly get it. Similarly, I've just mentioned under the Western Gateway report that we're going to have to commit to UK Reef. The stands were sold out within a week of us getting back from UK Reef this year. We do have that joint booking with Western Gateway, but again, to give them confidence, given their funding situation, it is important we go ahead and commit to that as well. But the final item on this one really is Unleashed. We've been running lots of mini Unleashed events after the main conference that we held in Newport last year. We've held events so far in Bargoed, in Bridgend and Torvine. We've got RCT and Newport next on the list. Really important local events. They give us deal flow for our funds. You'll have seen last week the announcement about Transcend, an innovative packaging firm in Tredommen in Ystrad. That came about as a result of them making contact with us via the Bargoed and Leash event. And here we go now, a significant investment later, which is great news for Caerphilly and absolutely fantastic news for this region. Chair, the second part of the report then deals with responsibly to note the events that we've committed to in this year. It's 17,000 we committed to being joint sponsors of the Technology Hub at the National Eisteddfod. Again, we're co-sponsoring with USW, and again, the idea is always to lever income in from other partners. So we've got others who've approached us that will help us offset that £17,000 investment. But again, really important, we're a public body now. We've got a Welsh Language Act that we have to conform with. So it's really important that we take our place at such venues. The Western Gateway Point, I've already covered, sponsorship, the significant convention in October of this year. There are a few more minor items, such as Wales Technology Week and Wales Week London. And again, with Wales Week London last year, we had a really significant event at the House of Lords, which brought together the wider investment community. So not just the Welsh investment community, but the city-based investment community, which again is really important, and those conversations are outgoing. I should note as well that for the events that we've committed to date, we've significantly drawn on the Shared Prosperity Fund. Like 65% of funding has come from the SPF, but because we need to look beyond that, that's why I make the point about this having to align with our medium-term financial plan. So, Chair, if I can draw you back to the recommendations which are set out in the front of the report, the CJC is asked to improve the approach to events and sponsorship and associated resourcing to May 2025, and to note the proposed development of a 3-year events and sponsorship plan, which we'll bring back shortly and will be aligned with both our corporate plan and the medium-term financial plan. Commend the report to you, Chair. Very happy to take any questions.
Much. Councillor Sean Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a question as a comment. I'd like to congratulate officers on being so forward thinking when it comes to selling the Cardiff Capital Region throughout the UK and throughout the world. And the cost of an events and sponsorship programme is dwarfed by the investment that these events bring in. So just to say that I'm very happy to support and move the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morgan. And I think this is extremely timely because, as we know, partnerships are going to be pushed even more across the UK as well as across Wales. And we need to be very clear what it is we want from our partnerships, how we are going to interact with them, and also the sponsorships that we want to take, so that we are always tracking, in a sense, what the rate of return is from our investments into these very important relationships that we build. We have 2 recommendations. One is asking for Thomas. Oh, sorry.
Hand is very small.
It is very small. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kerry, for the report. I just want to follow Councillor Sean Morgan's comments, really. You know, if we want to really fulfil our aspirations for our region, we need to sell ourselves to the rest of the world. And, you know, places like MIPIN, the amount of foreign investment that's coming through there that we could channel into our region to get the growth that we need and for the economic benefits that will bring us, we have to be on the world scene. I hope that Welsh Government will support us a little bit more going forward, as we were the only region at MIPIN last year, and everybody else, I think, got on our coattails really there. So I just hope, you know, we have further support from Welsh Government, and let's sell, you know, Cardiff Capital Region.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments? We have 2 recommendations. Recommendation 2 asks us just to note the proposed plan. Excellent. Recommendation 1 to improve the approach. Do I have a proposal?
Move, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. Now I come on to item 9, Regional Transport Plan Case for Change. Has the committee already met?
Yes, it has, Chair.
So
Yes.
to Kelly, this is a statutory obligation, but we also know absolutely critical for regional growth, regional inclusive growth.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, members, very pleased to present this morning the Regional Transport Plan initial case for change. So importantly, it's not the plan. The plan is some way off yet, but this important document really does identify the burning platform, if you like. Why do we need to take a different approach to transport in the region? And what are the problems that we're trying to solve through a comprehensive approach to regional transport planning? You'll note the name, members. It's unashamedly called Transport for Cardiff Capital Region. So there's a bit of a double devolution theme that we're trying to advance here, which I think is important to note. But as I say, you know, it is the first stage of a much wider process. And what the report and the appended case for change really sets out, hopefully, is self-explanatory. It's not just about transport for transport's sake. This is about future mobility. It's about future travel patterns. It's about how we bring people together. It's about that case for accessibility, relatability, how we move around but bring people together in the region, I think is a really important part of that. It's complementary to the work that we're going to be doing around the delivery agreement for the strategic development plan. And of course, it also sits alongside the statutory economic wellbeing power, which we have set out very comprehensively in our regional economic and industrial plan. But I think as well, it's about a really good consideration of the different levers and tools that we have in respect of regional transport planning, and indeed how we can use transport to address some of the wider challenges that we have in the region, particularly around productivity, inclusivity, and of course, sustainability. This is going to be massively important to our net zero agenda because transport accounts for so much of the region's CO2 emissions at the moment. Hopefully, when you read the document, it's distinctly about Cardiff Capital Region. We've tried to stay close to the economic geography and the issues that we have, the variety of issues that we have across different communities across the region, but also make sure that we clearly reference the UK context as well as the Welsh context, and of course the important local context, because we have some big differences across valley locations, cities, and of course the rural context as well. We've drawn on key data sets with the support of Transport for Wales, and I think we've been really ambitious about the plans we'd like to see in the region in the future. Yes, you know, we know that public funding, you know, that's going to be a difficult situation for the foreseeable. But we know as well events like MIPIM play a really important part because it gives us access to private investment, which is going to be really important for our infrastructure in the future. But the final thing I wanted to say, Chair, really is about the engagement that's gone on around this. Yes, the Regional Transport Subcommittee, chaired by Councillor Morgan, has met. It's had a briefing session. But this information has been shared with local authorities. We've had a really deep engagement process on that with the South East Wales Directors of Economy and Regeneration. Welsh Government, we work very closely with them, and Transport for Wales. We've shared this information with Western Gateway and others. So to date, it's a comprehensive process. We've got to commit to a wider community engagement plan, which you can see as part of this as well. That will be really significant. And of course, you've got appended to the report as well the strategic prioritisation framework, which TFW have worked on with us, which gives an assessment process, if you like, for how schemes can be funded in the future through public investment. Of course, there'll be a different approach in place for schemes that may secure private investment. But on that note, Chair, I'll say no more except to refer you to the recommendations which is set out there in the report, and that's to note the progress made against the regional transport plan and to endorse the case for change and the draft scheme prioritisation tool, which again is appended to. So, Chair, happy to commend this and of course to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you. I'll start with Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kelly. And I do support the report. There are many areas in the report I could jump on, and unfortunately they're usually bad for Blaenau Gwent, but we need to know the full aspect of what we're looking at to get better. But in the case for change document, on page I think it's 23 of the document or 117 of our report, some areas with significant areas where there are transport issues are named. And talking to a couple of colleagues in our area, it almost seems that it's almost Common Abertleir are always the ones put forward. Whereas in reality, in Blaenau Gwent, Tredegar and Brimau are far more challenged. They don't have rail, for example, rail links in there. So I'm just asking in future if we could switch those around to show the true areas where we have those difficulties. But as I said, Chair, I'm in support of the report and happy to move. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think I heard most of that, Chair. So yeah, thanks, Councillor Thomas. Completely take your point, and I think the next stage of the process now is to do the deeper dive so that we can expose some of those issues, bring them to the surface, and look at, as I say, it's difficult, isn't it? I think in relation to transport funding at the moment, but there are ways and means as part of this, as part of things like the investment zone. We've got opportunities around fiscal levers, so we'll certainly explore some of those. But yes, for Blaenau Gwent, I'm very well aware of some of the issues you've got. We've been talking about rail links to come in the past couple of weeks, and I know we've got a follow-up meeting. But of course, the next stage of the process now is to do some of those deeper dives. This is the case for change, but as we go through the next stage in instalments, hopefully we can make sure those issues are highlighted and reflect the picture as you see it.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Stansfield.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just like Councillor Thomas said, I'll be supporting the case for change, but I'm going to be banging the drum for the western part of the city region area, Bridgend, because like many areas, there's rail, but there's two valleys with no rail and very poor bus links. And it's a start, this document, but it's like looking for a needle in a haystack to find the detail. And that's what I'm going to be looking for in the future. And I'll just give you a couple of examples, because to date, I haven't been impressed with Transport for Wales when it comes to looking across the whole transport issues, not just rail bus issues, but we've got the Llynby Valley lines where it appears Transport for Wales have abandoned trying to improve the Llynby Valley line, which is desperately needed. My favourite topic for 25 years, I bumped on by Brackla Park and Ride. We built the park, we haven't got the ride. So we have a car park that's been sat there for years with no station. Now it conveniently gets pushed out on the periphery. And on the very edge of the CCR region, we have Pyle and our new local development plan, one of the few authorities has a new, up-to-date local development plan with 2,000 houses planned and a new station. It doesn't appear anywhere, and it's been brought to Transport Wales' attention in the past. They seem to forget there is life after the end of CCR region, going over to Swansea, and there's a new station planned, needs to be shown. And lastly, on the bus network, it's mentioned in the document, is poor, it's beyond poor, and that really needs to be, one of the top priorities. We've done some great work on rail with the metro lines and the rail, but we need quality, efficient bus services in the valleys where there's no rail line. So I'll keep banging on with that. I won't be going anywhere soon, and it needs to be in the final doc. It needs to be there in detail in later documents. Thank you.
I think you're banging on an open door there, Councillor Spanswick, because I don't think there's a local authority that doesn't recognise that buses are absolute lifeblood of connectivity, particularly because it's an accessibility and equality issue. It is lower income people, disabled people, women who are more likely to use bus transport to go about their daily business. I think we had then sorry, Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add in this. I welcome this report, and I think it's really good that there is a sort of joined up thinking now between the sustainable transport and subcommittee, but also the sustainable development subcommittee, where Councillor Andrew Morgan and I chair one and a vice chair for the other, and we sort of reciprocate. And in our conversations that we've had in those subcommittees, it's become very apparent that we actually need to work quite closely together. And a lot of the comments that we've heard this morning bear that out, that it's absolutely no good at all having an economic development site that nobody can get to. It's absolutely no good having a train, a station which gentrifies the area specifically around it, but actually, unless you've got effective bus links to get, or active travel links to get to that station, the rest of the community is cut adrift. These are some of the very fundamental things that we need to be looking at. And as Councillor Spanswick said, we also have to be mindful that we are not operating in isolation from other areas of Wales, and we have to look at where the links are out of the region as well. Next week I go on a bus trip, on a bus that goes it actually goes from Cardiff down to Bridgend. If I stayed on it for the whole lot, it would take me nearly 3 hours. Nobody can live their life with a bus service that takes you 3 hours to get from Bridgend into Cardiff. So it's an awful lot of things that we need to be looking at. And I think that in the recent meeting of the Strategic Development Subcommittee, there actually was a request that we have joint workshops, not only with the Strategic Transport Subcommittee, but also that we run some workshops for the actual overall CJC committee to look at some of these issues. And I think we'll be taking that forward. But I think this is a good start. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I think I'd add to that it's pointless developing affordable housing schemes if the cost of getting to them, or getting to work, or to utilities and town centres actually undermines affordable living. Councillor Petrucci.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And sorry if you can hear baby screaming. Couple of points. On the 14 quantitative measures, as I've read the report, it doesn't seem to factor in cost. Is that factored in elsewhere? Is that it's put against, those quantitative measures are put against the detailed appraisals as I've read the report, but please correct me on that. And is that cost considered? Because, I'm hearing some of the conversations here. The reason why bus services are struggling is they haven't got the patronage in many areas to make it a cost-effective enterprise. Otherwise, private sector would have filled the hole. So we really have to be clear about cost-to-benefit ratios here, and I'm sure all of us could come up with bus routes, but we're going to have real clarity and rationale as to why certain bus routes make sense and others do not, rather than trying to promise everything to everyone. I just don't think it's feasible. And on page 143, it talks about the quantitative measures will give us a score, and then there'll be a qualitative justification as well. But these are at the discretion of the CJC. Is that the regional transport group who will have that discretion on the score? And then it says, ultimately, the quantitative score should be used to supplement, not dictate the overall score. So what dictates the overall score would be my other question. Is that a political discussion? What does that look like? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so thanks, Councillor Petrucci. Just in relation to the question on cost, this is just really the case for change, highlighting some of the issues, the challenges that we've got to explore. We'll have to have a comprehensive cost-benefit model. And on bus in particular, I'm keen that we get out there. We've got Cardiff and Newport as examples of municipal bus authorities, and affordability is a big issue. And I think if we can look at some of the franchising models, I know there's a keenness from the group to go visit places like Greater Manchester. It has to absolutely be part of the equation, because subsidy is going to be a big issue. And with declining public finances, we've got to find other ways to look at this whole equation. So I think that the commercials of this are going to be really important as we get to that next stage of the process. There's no easy answers, though. I have to be upfront about that. It is going to take a comprehensive remodeling exercise. And I think we need to think differently about our engagement with commercial operators and the private market. And there are some examples out there that we can definitely look to. In relation to the point about test, yes, test and challenge is the next phase of development, which we'll be doing with our regional officer group, just to make sure that we've tested some of that cost modelling out. And then in relation to, you know, how do we go through the process with the model that TFW's developed? Yes, but of course there will be political consideration and nuance. I think the evidence base will get us so far, but ultimately it comes down to decisions of members. But what I would flag is with that model that TFW have developed, that's purely for transport schemes that come through public funding and the well-tagged route. What we'll also need to develop is where we've got private interest. You know, we are talking to some of the big investment banks and the institutionals at the moment, is what is the criteria for some things that we could attract private finance for, because they tend to find us on the projects they think are investable, but we still need to have some transparent methodology and assessment process for those things as well. So yes, at the moment, this is the case for change, but we will move on quickly now to the next stages of the process. And to come back on all of the questions that have been asked in this short session, I guess all of the issues that have been highlighted around bus connectivity, issues of equality, inclusion, that's the whole benefit of us doing this plan as a region, so we can look comprehensively, we can identify the issues, and we can make sure that they're presented, I think, in a much more powerful and joined up way.
Come back on that, Councillor Petrini.
I just look forward to the case study of that, because as ever, Kelly, great words, but the devil will be in the detail of this and how it all plays out. And so I look forward to those. Will we have case studies coming through to show how this feeds through the system in eventually? And actually, come to think of it, where do you sit with regards to burns and this plan?
Councillor Petrini, thanks for the questions. In terms of cost, yeah, the deliverability and risk appraisal considers scheme cost, and we're currently gathering schemes from around the region. We've been working with officers, and so that's been a really effective process to engage with officers to understand, and the burn schemes are included as part of that as well. The second part I was going to make, the intention of the prioritisation tool is to be data driven, not data dictated, because there's a degree to which common sense has to override some factors. The Regional Transport Subcommittee, and just as importantly, we meet fortnightly with regional transport officers, including colleagues from Newport, who are hugely supportive and very instructive. So what we'd like to do is to work through the officers, understand some of those priorities, and then work through the Regional Transport Subcommittee as well. But absolutely, on your question around about case studies, yeah, we'll be stress testing that prioritisation tool with real life schemes imminently. So we'll very happily come back and let you know how that goes.
Thank you, Chair.
I think what that underlines for me is the point that you made, Councillor Burnett, is absolutely imperative, because Councillor Petrini's points are well made, that every one of us is really well sighted on how this develops and how it connects with our regional growth plans and our other investments. And it may be through workshops, it may be through other mechanisms, but it's not something that we can wait to be told about. It's far too critical. Every level, and most importantly, I think, to all the citizens who live within our region or who work within our region. Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just for me, how essential it is that we've got a regional transport plan, and that we will be putting together a strategic development plan for the area. How these link with each other, how they link with Welsh Government's ambitions to reduce carbon and to provide better and more opportunities for public transport. And sometimes these three areas sort of butt up against each other. Certainly, as a region, we've got ambitions in some areas to build roads to allow a rapid transit bus route. And sometimes that goes against what Welsh Government wants. So I think for us to be talking with one voice as a region, as we try to overcome our local regional difficulties. I know Steve and John had just spoken about the issues in their areas, and their issues that I think that we all got. And you know, we are well aware that public transport always costs more than it brings in directly. But just to back up what Marianne and Liz has said, I think what we never measure is the social cost of not upgrading public transport, because you know the costs of not doing it are huge for our residents. But I fully support the report. And Chair, I'm now going to have to, at the end of this item, I'm going to have to leave the meeting. I hope that doesn't leave us with any problems regarding being quorate.
No, we're fine. Thank you. Kelly, or
Yeah, I just think there are some really good points made by Councillor Morgan there, and there are going to be some thorny issues. I know bus alone is a vexed issue, and we've just explored that in the last few minutes. But when we look forward to future funding of infrastructure, you'll see the report does touch on things like congestion charging, you know, in relation to the climate crisis, but also in relation to how we fund some of the innovation and some of the additional services. Welsh Government have announced, I think it was earlier this week, that they're looking at future ownership options of Cardiff Wales Airport. Again, things that may be difficult and uncomfortable, but if we're really going to pioneer a different agenda here, they have to be part of the consideration. They have to be part of discussions around future mobility and what transport for Cardiff Capital Region really means. So it won't be easy, but then, you know, doing the right things are never easier than. So I look forward to the next instalment.
have any more comments before we move to the recommendations? We have two recommendations. The first is just to note, and I think we've fully discussed the progress to date and the direction we would like strategy to take. The second one is to endorse the draft case that was shared with us and to authorise officers to undertake consultation with stakeholders. And while it is touched on and made clear, I think I would certainly like to emphasise that we are looking to deep consultations with the public and the diverse voices and diverse uses of our regional chat networks, including those who use it to cross borders. So on recommendation 2, do we have a mover, please?
Move it, Chair, and echo your comments as well. Thanks.
Do we have a seconder?
Second,
Happy
Chair.
to second.
So can I have a show of hands, please? Now move on to the second part of our agenda, which is concerned with the city deal on investment zone business. So,
sorry, we've got two more that by my calculation. Sorry, back up is the revenue out of report, then the annual business plan. Then we're on to item 10.
You're in.
Yeah, it does say it. Yeah.
yeah, I was just moving on to
Sorry. Yeah.
item 10.
It's under city deal. Yeah. Sorry, it's my mistake, Chair. I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, no worries. It's always good to look to the future. Maybe not that. So item 10 is the revenue report, the final item report, which you can rest.
I can for one. Yeah.
Looking forward to the future, and we can bring Liam in here. Welcome, Liam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So firstly, can I just thank Virginia Singh who's on the call this morning and the wider finance team for the work in pulling this report together before I came in before. And moving on to the report itself then, so it shows the final outturn position for the previous year, 2023-24, and it shows a net underspend of £504,000, a variance of £91,000 from the position reported at month 9, where a variance of £412,000 was reported. Details of the key variances are outlined in Table 1, which is on page 3 of the report, and there's further detail of those variances outlined in paragraphs 11 to 17 of the report. The overall underspend will result in local authority partner contributions and wider investment when top slice not being required in full, and the budget requirement for the current year of £459,000 to be met from general reserves. It also allows for a further £226,000 to be set aside for specific purposes, and those purposes are set out in Table 2 of the report. I refer members back to the recommendations within the report, with which they're approved, Chair. Briefly, members are asked to note the final outturn position against the approved Joint Committee revenue budget for the year ending 31st of March 2024. And secondly, members are asked to approve the proposed 2023-24 underspend as set out in Table 2 of the report. Happy to take any questions on the report, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. Do I have any comments or questions? We have two recommendations. The one is just to ask and to note the current outturn position. The second is for us to approve. Could I ask for the mover, please?
Move them, Chair.
Thanks. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a show of hands, please? It's on to the item 11, which is the annual business plan Q4 performance reporting.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is the Q4 performance report against the 23-24 CCR business plan, which members will recall is a combined business plan. So it covers Cardiff Capital Region, the City deal, but also the transition programme as was to the Corporate Joint Committee. It therefore discharges our reporting requirements in relation to the City deal contract and the quarterly performance reports that we have to submit to both UK and Welsh governments. So paragraph 4 summarises the comprehensive performance, and you have that again in Appendix 1, where all of that set out in some nice charts and graphs. You'll see that in relation to spend, our target was nearly 20 million and we undershot that by about 4.5 million. That's because, one, we've had a bit of an investment displacement where we've managed to get some things funded through other resources like the Shared Prosperity Fund, but also because we missed the target on the investment that I talked about previously, the investment into Transcend. That was meant to be completed by year end, but took a little while longer. We've clearly caught up on that now, so there isn't a problem overall, but it's difficult sometimes to estimate the timing and when some of these things are going to land. But that's the reason why there was a slight shortfall there in terms of performance spend. Just in relation to jobs, which you'll see set out in the report for the quarter, 491 jobs, 224 million rather, I wish it was 240 million, in relation to initial leverage, 19 million in private match funds. And of course, those numbers are not stuck in time. They keep growing as the investments mature and evolve. And of course, we keep track of that through our investment monitoring processes and of course, the UK government's gateway review. You'll see in paragraph 9 some of the significant non-investment activity that we deal with all of the time. Again, the very welcome announcement of the investment in Mazumba in Regent, a female-headed business there, very significant in terms of the impact they're creating. The event that we had in the House of Lords, CCR being invited along with FinTech Wales to open the London Stock Exchange, some of the work we did around International Women's Day, and of course our attendance and participation in MIPIM. You'll see in paragraph 10 as well a reflection on some of the transition work, which did take up a lot of time, effort and activity towards the end of last year. I think I've still got a little bit of post-traumatic stress, but you'll see the massive amount of work that was undertaken there to get us where we are today in relation to constitution, innovations, policies, procedures, business plans, 2P, and so on. I just draw your attention very quickly to paragraph 11, which gives an update in respect of the activities on the annual governance statement, which is still 22-23, because that's the accounting cycle that we're still working to at this time. And then an update from paragraph 14 onwards in relation to internal audit. And you'll note there at paragraph 15, our most recent internal audit has given us an effective rating in relation to internal controls. The risk register is updated at paragraph 23. That's a very live and dynamic thing, as you can see. We will be updating that. We need to bring forward our wider risk register update, which looks at macro level risks as well as micro program level risks. And we'll do that in our next autumn meeting. I think that's all I want to say on this report, Chair. Very happy to take any questions, but the recommendations are set out there at paragraph 2, and it's to confirm acceptance of the Q4 23-24 performance report and to authorise us as officers to now formally submit the report to both UK and Wales governments.
Thank you. Before I invite questions and comments, could I remind colleagues that Annex 1 has parts which are exempt, and therefore if we want to discuss it, we may have to consider excluding the public for that item. Do we have any questions? Okay, I can move to the recommendation then. Do we have a proposal?
Move the report, Chair.
And I saw Councillor Burnett's hand go up. Seconder, could I have a show of hands, please? At this point, for people online and in the room, we are now going to a closed session. Thank you very much for joining us for the public session. I suggest we take a 1 minute break.